Found in the south of China, adjacent to the Yunnan Plateau, lies a secret land. It is linked to Vietnam, Laos, and Burma, and is connected to many other Southeast Asian countries. This magical land of about 390,000 square kilometers nurtures and supports 47 million people. Among the 56 nationalities in China, as many as 15 ethnic minorities exclusively live on this land. From a southeastern estuary that lies 76 meters above sea level to the snow-capped Meili Mountain in the northwest, rising 6,740 meters above sea level, the difference in altitude is astounding. The unique geography of this place has created a unique multi-dimensional climate. The many rivers, lakes, forests, terraces, mountains, and canyons are breathtaking and scattered across the province in the most perfect of ways. Flowers blossom here, and it is spring all year round. The spectacular mountains and rivers, as well as the mysterious and remarkable cultural customs, bestow a very special status upon this area. The world yearns for this pure land, which lies under magnificent clouds. This is China's Yunnan. The name Yunnan originates from the great emperor in ancient China. During a breezy evening in the Gangquan Palace, which lies 120 kilometers northwest from the Han Empire's capital, Emperor Wudi of the Han Dynasty, aged 44, walked up the steps. This is the year 112 BC, during the 5th year of the Yuanding reign of Emperor Wudi. This was the most prosperous time for the Han Empire and the middle-aged Liu Qi. Since his ascension to the throne 28 years ago, Liu Qi, the ambitious emperor of the Han Dynasty, had been working to realize his great ambition. One day, in deep thought, he unexpectedly looked up and spotted a large, colorful cloud to the southwest. He was enamored at the cloud's beauty and radiant nature. Liu Qi immediately ordered his historian to examine the direction and location of the cloud. After 1 month, the historian determined that the cloud was over the remote state southwest of Qinghai. Specifically, it was located over Yunnan Post in Dali, Yunnan. One can imagine Emperor Wudi's reaction, exclaiming that this magical cloud in the south is an auspicious omen, a story passed down over generations. Hence the name Yunnan, literally Southern Cloud, was born. There have been great changes over the past 2,000 years, but the name of Yunnan has never changed. Yunnan's unique geology is a result of prehistoric shifts in the area's tectonic plates. Hundreds of millions of years ago, the Eurasian plate and the Indian subcontinent plate collided violently, leading to the creation of the Qinghai Tibet Plateau, also known as the roof of the world. The movement of the Earth's crust lasted for millions of years, and the Qinghai Tibet Plateau is still rising to this day. On the southeastern edge of the Qinghai Tibet Plateau, a group of mountains with an average height of more than 3,000 meters were also uplifted at this time. This is the buffer zone for the Sichuan Basin in the Qinghai Tibet Plateau, which is called the Yunnan Guizhou Plateau. Along the Sichuan Basin, the northern edge of Yunnan Guizhou Plateau is made up of a majestic east-west mountain range, which has evolved into the portal of the Yunnan Guizhou Plateau. It is known today as the Womang Mountains. The Womang Mountains start in the north from Zunyi, Tongzi, and Bijie in Guizhou Province, go through Zhenxiang, Weiqin, Yiliang, Zhaotong, Shaoqia, and Dongchuan in Yunnan Province, and end to the south in Kunming, the provincial capital of Yunnan. It meanders from northeast to northwest with a length of more than 1,000 kilometers. The Womang Mountains, with deep ravines and canyons, as well as upright peaks, is one of the most complex and diverse geological treasures in China. These endless peaks have been eroded by rivers of different sizes, gradually forming marvelous canyons. These canyons, full of dense forests and strange rocks, are complemented with rising clouds and fog all year round. When the sun's rays meet the ever-changing cloud cover, the Womang Mountains become more mysterious, broad, and vibrant. Biography of the ethnic minority groups in southwest China in records of the historian says, during the Qin dynasty, Wuqi Road was built by Chang'an. Wuqi Road, literally the 5-foot road, was a state road in the Qi dynasty. It started in Xingyi and ended in Badao. Badao was a wooden walkway hundreds of kilometers long, which connects Chengdu and Yiban in Sichuan today. The walkway was conceived by Li Bing and his son, who are also known for building the famous Dujiang Dam. Later, Shang'an, who served as the prefecture chief of Shu Prefecture, went south via Badao and mobilized a large number of workers and resources to extend the wooden road from the Yiban city through Yangjin Daosha Pass in Yunnan's Zhaotong directly to today's Quying. By the time of Emperor Wudi, the 5-footed road was rebuilt and extended to the Dianxi area, the meandering and rugged ancient road of Womang Mountains. mountains measuring approximately 100 kilometers link the Central Plains with Yunnan, gradually becoming a part of the South Silk Road. The construction of the 5-foot road accelerated cultural exchanges between the Central Plains and Yunnan. Today, the stele monument of Meng Chaochu, preserved in Zaotong's Phoenix Pond Academy, serves as a compelling piece of evidence. The person named in the inscription, Meng Chaochu, was born in Wumang Mountains during the Han Dynasty. His father worked as an official in Muyang, today's Hebei damming and Handan areas. When he was 12 years old, he studied Han poetry and was very well versed in the concept of filial piety. Unfortunately, this talented young man died in a foreign land while still engaged with his bride-to-be. An attendant of Meng Chaochu's father buried Meng Chaochu's remains in Sushi County, the city of Zaotong today, erecting the stone stele, recording Meng Chaochu's life. From the stele of Meng Chaochu, we can learn about the cultures and customs of people living in the Central Plains during the Han Dynasty, of how official scripts from the Han Dynasty evolved into what they are today. This is not only an important historical source, but also a priceless Han Dynasty stele. In the early autumn of 794 AD, a team led by an official named Yuanzi was marching on the 5-foot road in the Wumang Mountains. He was sent by Emperor Dizang, the 9th emperor of the Tang Dynasty. Yuanzi started from Chang'an City in the midsummer and entered Yunnan via Sichuan along the 5-foot road. His final destination was Nanzhao in the west of Yunnan. Yuanzi's trip was different from his usual business dealings or cultural exchanges. His primary mission this time was to go to Nanzhao State and confer titles of nobility on behalf of the great Tang Empire. Yuanzi departed from Chang'an, and over the course of 1 month, he passed Yiban in Sichuan and went upstream along the Jingsha River in the upper reaches of the Yangtze River. After an arduous journey, he finally made it to Shiman Pass in Yanjin. When he arrived in Yanjin, it was early autumn, with its distinct seasonal breeze and yellowish tree leaves. The steep cliffs pierced the sky, and the deep canyons burrowed deep into the earth. Yuanzi could not help but exclaim that this was the country's greatest mountain pass. At this point of his journey, he was worried that after 1 month's travel, he had only just reached Shiman Pass, while his final destination to Nanzhao State was still over hundreds of kilometers away. He could not imagine how difficult and unpredictable the rest of his trip would be. After resting for a few days in Shiman Pass, on the morning of the 12th day of the 9th month of the Chinese lunar calendar, 794 AD, Yuanzi, in a brooding mood, gave the order to inscribe his mission to Shiman on a cliff and to witness his delegation's arrival at the Wumang Mountains, which was said to be more difficult than reaching the sky. This is the famous inscribed cliff by Yuan-zi of the Tang dynasty. After completing the inscription, Yuan-zi left Shiman Pass. Further south, it was farther from Chang'an. Fortunately, the scenery along the way was beautiful, with countless streams and waterfalls dotting the valleys, canyons, and cliffs. A few days later, they came to the central area of the Wamang Mountains. In front of them, the ancient town of Pinkbar, which was at high altitude but was relatively flat and open, with Sushi County located in the center of Zalu Dam. Yuan-zi was impressed. He did not expect to find a plain and fertile plateau at the top of this alpine valley. According to the ancient records, the Zalu Dam was originally a vast ocean, historically called the Qiangqing Pool. It was once a huge freshwater lake on the plateau of northeastern Yunnan, with the water drying up after thousands of years. Now, what Yuan-zi saw was a vast expanse of plateau dryland. In the thousands of years, Sushi County has changed names many times. It was not until today that it was named Zaotong. No matter what it was known as, people here have always yearned for the legendary Qiangqing Pool. In a suburb of Zaotong, the Longhai Tower built during the Qing dynasty is still standing today. Although the ancient lake has disappeared, the people of Zaotong often come here searching for the sea that once existed here. According to legend, after a short stay in Sushi County, Yuan-zi was anxious to find a shortcut to Nanzhao State. At that time, there were two roads leading to Nanzhao State. The first one started from today's Chuing through Kunming and then turned west to reach Nanzhao. The second one started from Qiaoqia in the west of Sushi County through Yuanmao and finally reaching Nanzhao State. By comparison, the second route was shorter and more doable. Yuan-zi chose the latter without hesitation and led the delegation to Qiaoqia in the direction of Jinsha River. During the Tang dynasty, when geographical knowledge was imperfect, Yuan-zi's team went to the area of Dashanbua, found in the west of Zaotong. The magnificent and boundless plateau meadow, full of energy and vitality, reinvigorated Yuan-zi, who had become very fatigued from his journey. Dashanbao during Mid-Autumn Festival was covered with a thin layer of snow, and the peaks, indistinct in the sea of clouds, came into sight. As the meadow extended underfoot, the snow mountain was looming. When Yuan-zi moved ahead, he suddenly saw the end of Dashanba. It was as if a quick giant had stopped abruptly at the edge of an enormous crevice. Their path was blocked by this vast cliff, and they were told that the mountains on either side of the canyon was called Zhejiang Mountain. The snow mountain seen earlier was still dozens of kilometers away from the canyon. The precipitous Dashenbo, the marvelous Jigang Mountain, and the vast and profound cloud sea in the canyon all converged to create a remarkable scene, shaking the core of these visitors from the central plains of the Tang dynasty. Everyone fell silent, unable to utter a single word. All of a sudden, rays of light burst from the cracks in the sky, leaving everyone stunned, dazzled, and enraptured. As he was standing on the edge of the cliff at Jingang Mountain, Yuanzi felt humbled by the astounding beauty of the place that lies between heaven and earth. With tears streaming down his face, he fell to his knees in reverent devotion, facing the capital Qinghai, and prayed 3 times in tribute to the gods of creation. Yuanzi realized that there was no way to move forward. He set off and led his followers back to Sushi County, and chose a road frequently taken by horses that went via Husi and Kunming, heading directly for Nanzhao State. In the early spring of 795 AD, after nearly 2 months of long-distance trekking in Yunnan, his team finally reached Dali, the capital of Nanzhao State. Yuanzi completed his mission of conferring the title of nobility to Yu Mangchung on behalf of the Tang Empire. And since that day, the territory controlled by Nanzhao State was officially incorporated into the territory of the Tang dynasty. The diplomatic channel opened by Yuanzi facilitated frequent political, economic, and cultural exchanges between the central plains of Yunnan. In the 1,000 years that followed the Tang dynasty, numerous political leaders, scholars, and merchants brought with them knowledge of Central Plains culture and passed through the majestic Wumang Mountains. Confucian culture shortly thereafter began to take root in Yunnan, gradually fusing the diverse ethnic traditions of the area, ultimately creating even richer and more complex cultures. Wumang Mountains has been the birthplace of many important stories and has also shaped a number of important historical figures here. On July the 7th, 1937, the Lugo Bridge incident broke out, and the Chinese army rose to resist. A large number of patriotic soldiers rushed to the front line and fought bravely. The national crisis and rumbling of guns and cannon soon spread to Yunnan during the War of Resistance against Japan. On the early morning of July the 8th, in a heavily guarded French-style villa in Wuha Mountain, a man was pacing and pondering. He'd had a sleepless night. This man, 53 years old and of the Yi nationality, was born in Wumang Mountains. His name was Lang Yun. By 1937, Lang Yun had served as chairman of the national government of Yunnan province for 9 years. He was called the King of Yunnan because of his high prestige and policies of good governance. Out of intuition, Lang Yun believed that the Japanese war of aggression against China was the result of a long-time plot, and that the war was bad for China, so he had no time to hesitate. Lang Yun's long-term political career did not affect his military decisions and character. He quickly redeployed his troops and ordered for the reorganization of 40,000 new-style Yunnan soldiers into the 60th Army of the National Revolutionary Army. The 60th Army urgently trained day and night in Kunming before the expedition. On September the 10th, 1937, the officers and soldiers of the 16th Army started from the Kunming-Daban Bridge and headed to Chuzhou to participate in the Tai Zhuang Campaign. Among the officers and soldiers in the expedition, nearly 8,000 came from Zhaotong City, Lang Yun's hometown. The famous Tai Zhuang Campaign dealt a heavy blow to the aggressors. During this time, the Chinese army suffered more than 50,000 casualties. According to post-war statistics, in a small mountain village called Songlu in Yangshan, a village of Zhangtong City, the birthplace of Lang Yun, hundreds of officials and men died at that campaign. Today, there is a memorial to this national calamity at the gate of downtown Zhaotong. It is inscribed with a list of 3,304 members of the Zhaotong anti-Japanese army. The Zhaolu Dam, located in northeastern Yunnan, is the 4th biggest dam on the Yunnan-Guizhou Plateau. The ancient city of Zhaotong is located at the center of the Zhaolu Dam. In a small village called Bojiwan, near the outskirts of the city, the ancestral temple of Lang Yun and his family still remains intact to this day. During the War of Resistance against Japan, the Lang family ancestral hall was used as an army hospital for wounded soldiers on the front. This ancestral temple, used to worship and remember one's ancestors, was generously used as a wartime hospital. During this critical time in the country's history, the people of Wumang Mountains showed unselfish generosity and righteousness. The people of Wumang and countless others like Lang Yun went through many difficult years, all for the survival of the local land and the country. In the 2 years prior to the 16th Army joining the Tai Zhuang Campaign, in the early spring of 1935, the Central Red Army passed through Wumang Mountains during the Long March. As a revolutionary and a poet, Mao Zedong's revolutionary movement was hitting a romantic peak, and he wrote the epic poem, "Step Out of the Great Mud Pit, Wumang." In January 1935, the Central Military Commission of the CPC Central Committee on the Long March held a famous conference in Zunyi, Guizhou, which was the first step in establishing Mao Zedong's leading position in the central government. A month later, the Central Red Army crossed the Chishui River and entered Weiqing County in the Wumang Mountains. In Haoxiang Village, Zuoxian, and Jiangxia Hall, 3 important meetings were held, known as the Zacchi Conferences. Here, Mao Zedong's leading position in the central government was firmly established. Under the leadership of Mao Zedong, the Central Red Army spent months in the vast mountain range and finally defeated the enemy troops of Kuomintang and successfully stepped out of the huge mud pit. Wumang Mountains became one of the important turning points of the Red Army's long march from defeat to victory. The history and culture of this place, interwoven with the nature of Wumang Mountains, is considered by the people of Wumang to be the foundation of their contemporary culture. Since the Tang and Song dynasties, Zaotong had been known as sushi. During the reign of the Yongzhang and Qing dynasty, it was officially renamed Zaotong, which refers to the prosperous and accessible. In the early years of the Republic of China, new cultures sprang up, and the Kuomintang government set up a county system in northeast Yunnan. The place, 30 kilometers to the south of Ximen Pass, was named Daguan County. For a long time, Daguan County has been an important post of the 5-foot road and also the only way for the Central Plains culture to enter Yunnan. The dense jungle and the misty clouds on the mountaintop gives this place a dreamlike and mysterious atmosphere. The famous poet Li Bai, who lived during the Tang dynasty, once wrote a poem called "The Water in the Yellow River Comes from the Sky." While this poem is all just imagination, there is a river called Huhanglianhe in Yunnan, which well describes how the poetry sounds and works. For people who visit here, they cannot help but exclaim that the water of the Huhanglian River is really from the sky. Along the Huhanglian River, nestled in the mountains, the clouds turn into waterfalls and rush down from the high rocks. Clouds merge into waterfalls. There are streams in the clouds and mists in the streams. In fact, in the jungle of Wumang Mountains, there are many beautiful and magnificent natural landscapes. Flowing water murmurs around the valleys, and picturesque farmhouses dot the landscape. This peaceful paradise across the vast expanse of Wumang Mountains constitutes a beautiful natural landscape painting. Dashenbao is most romantic during the winter. Countless black-necked cranes migrate from the Qinghai Tibet Plateau for wintertime. Under the care of locals, black-necked cranes thrive happily here. Because of the black-necked cranes, Dashenbao offers elegant and beautiful scenes, becoming a national protected area. History is growing and time is lapsing. The vast and heavy Wumang Mountains have remained untouched throughout their long history and still stand firm in the vast land of northeast Yunnan. Together with the Jinsha River, which passes through the Wumang Mountains, It represents the flow of Chinese culture as a strong and unified entity, spurring the golden age of China's development.
情